Let's bring in Major Glenn Ignazio, who's retired Air Force Special Operations Commander. Quick word on the shakeup, Glenn, before we talk about Ukraine and some of the other news. And Mike Waltz to the UN. The Henry Kissinger reference, of course, at the top was years ago. He famously served in both roles that now, at least on an interim basis, Marco Rubio will, National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. What do you make of this? Do you read into it in any way about what it means for foreign policy in the Trump administration?
Yeah, I think that the idea of Mike Waltz still staying into this is good. Being in the UN, being the ambassador to the UN, puts that distance between him and Trump, which I think still builds some comfort for Trump. But he did at least acknowledge he was at fault for the signal gate. The idea that Rubio being both parts of this with the State Department and as the advisor, he is so closely and intimately connected to all these negotiations going on overseas and trying to maintain that balance that he's like, it's perfect. So President Trump's going to get the most direct, real-time information of what's going on overseas versus having another person sit in there. So Rubio really does represent it pretty well, and I think he'd do pretty good in that job as well.
All right, that makes sense. Now on the negotiations, as to Joe's point, I'll bring it up on the tablet again. You got the rare minerals in Ukraine, on down the list there, graphite, iron, lithium, rare earths, so on and so forth. You see where they're located. And then here's the screen that shows you the deals in terms of what, we get out of it, so to speak. We're able to work something out here. I guess a couple of things. Does this lead to peace in Ukraine, as I said at the top of the show? And as you answer that, I want to bring up the other post. I don't want this to get lost that President Trump had right after he made the announcement about Waltz, because it had to do with Iran. And I'm wondering what the significance of that is. Basically saying, hey, anybody out there that's doing business with Iran, is buying their oil, knock it off, he says, right now, otherwise you're going to be sanctioned. So I wonder how that fits into the mix. This is just out today as well.
Yes, it's a busy day, isn't it? I think that the idea with everything with this mineral deal does give us another step towards that piece. Again, that's one big step, but it's a huge leap to get that completely closed out. The reason is as we mentioned in the past, is the mining takes and requires so much electrical power, and a lot of the electrical systems and power grids in Ukraine has been destroyed. So the U.S. has a big involvement in that. A lot of those minerals, the titanium, lithium, and other things, especially titanium, we don't have really in the United States. So that's important for us. One of the issues, though, is coal, which is going to be one of the big things for Ukraine to get their mining, is actually controlled mostly by Russia. So that's a big thing in protecting U.S. interest and U.S. personnel that'll be there. I think that's a good step for protection.
And what about the Iran post in terms of who he's talking about and what you make of it?
Yeah, I think that's definitely as far as, hey, if you are sending or at least supporting any type of terrorism where we see Iran supporting all those groups, Houthis included, that you are basically sponsoring terrorism and be able to shut that down. That's not too much different, but I think there's much more enforcement. And we're seeing the Houthis. We just saw that huge oil port destroyed by U.S. fighters. So I think they're trying to shut that down, and the Houthis were targeting an aircraft carrier not too long ago.
That's true. There was there were a number of interesting moments in our town hall that was held right where I'm standing here last night when President Trump called in. One of them on this topic, or that we're talking about with Ukraine, was when Bill O'Reilly asked the president, he says, hey, what'd you say to Zelensky when you guys were face to face at the Vatican, St. Peter's Basilica? And here's what the president said.
I was telling him that it's a very good thing if we can produce a deal that you sign it, because Russia is much bigger and much stronger. Russia is just chugging forward. It's a big, strong country. By the way, not nearly as strong as the United States, because I rebuilt our military in my first term.
What do you make about that, of the argument and the way he's articulating it there vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine? And we have the minerals deal. Now the question is, can we get something more?
Yes, I think he, and really stating, like, look at, if there's a deal that's put forward to you, I think it was quoted, to Zelensky, is like, you need to take it. And we do see that. We saw the massive attacks for Russia in the recent days. And it looks like they're trying to grab as much real estate, anticipating that there's going to be some kind of ceasefire negotiation. So I think that it's really important. And he's telling Zelensky, look at, you need to take this, because as we've mentioned, you and I have talked, is this long game really benefits Russia because of all the manpower they've got and the weapons. So I think it's very smart that he's pressing it. And I think we're really getting closer to a deal here, especially with the U.S. involvement.
Okay, Glenn, thanks as always. Glenn Ignazio with us. Of course, we'll have more on all this, especially the Mike Waltz story that's developing. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.